Hey guys, it's Rich with another Tarot Talk video. In this video I'm going to be reviewing the Steampunk Tarot. This is by Barbara Moore and illustrated by Ali Fell. This is a Llewellyn publication. Little bit on the box. Now, I've said in the past that I don't keep my tarot in their respective boxes. Very rarely do they ever get kept in their actual boxes that they come in. So this isn't a big deal for me. I know it's a big deal for some people, and yes, I do like a good package, but if it doesn't come in a good box, that doesn't really mean that it's not a deck for me. This one is nothing to write home about. It's just a regular Llewellyn Publications type box. Nothing to write home about, nothing special. Doesn't have the little, magnetic clasps or anything like that. So not a particularly special box, but a good, a good package to come in. But what it contains is actually a lot better than what the box is. So I will say this about Llewellyn: they don't package their tarot particularly fancy because, and this is my view on it, is the reason being is because they have their sights set on other things like their actual publications of their printed material and stuff like that, that the packaging of tarot is kind of a secondary thought in their eyes. So as far as the packaging, nothing to write home about, nothing special, but like I said, I don't usually keep my tarot in a box, so this packaging, not really that important. The book, I was suggested by one of the viewers, and I do apologize that I cannot remember which viewer actually commented and said that the Steampunk Tarot is a good tarot to get if you like companion books, because I do really like companion books that come along with the tarot decks, because it gives an insight into the author or the illustrator's point of view into how they view the tarot. And I found this one pretty well done. There are some comments that I have on it. Good things first. They give a full picture, black and white photo, which is not a big deal to me. I can take or leave a photo as long as if you give me some good substantial material inside. This is, let's see, well over 200 pages, almost up to 300 pages. They do give about 5 or 6 spreads inside. So if you're just starting out, this is a great book to get, to be able to learn spreads and whatnot. Like I said, they do give a photo of the cards, a full page photo. And this is on the Six of Wands right now. So they do give that, and then they give a page to a page and a half, sometimes 2 pages. I do believe the one that I've seen, there's at least one in here that is almost 2 pages. The big drawback of this book is that they do not give reversed meanings, so if you do read reversals, this is not particularly a great book for reversal meanings because they don't give them. And that's also reflected by the backs of the cards as well. So, yeah, not a particularly reverse-friendly deck, but I do like the points of view that the author has given to the cards and relating them to the steampunk. It gives a little synopsis, or a little kind of a poem, I guess you would say. And this one's from the Three of Wands. It says, "This is my credo. Clarity of vision, strength of will, and unshakable determination. And yes, it is working for me." And then it gives a core meaning and then goes into a longer, in-depth detail into the card. And then on some of them it also gives a reading tip. So it gives you a tip. This is from the Four of Wands. It says, "Reading tip. If this card is in the company of the Lovers, the Hierophant, the Two of Cups, or the Ten of Cups, a wedding may be in the future. Also, if paired with a Justice card, it could mean civil ceremony type of marriage coupled with a celebration or celebratory party. It does give some of those reading tips and whatnot, which are very valuable, especially if you're starting off learning. I kind of just haphazardly, intuitively get those types of reading tips, I guess you would call them, whenever I'm reading, and kind of put those things together that way. But this is something that I would like to read on and see how they correlate to one another, that type of thing. So currently not something that I have like a set meaning, like if this is paired with this is what that means. I don't necessarily have something like that in my way of reading, but I do like to see stuff like that. I do like to study stuff like that. So definitely a welcomed and appreciated part of this book. So good, solid reading material. And then I'm going to flip you guys down here so you can see the cards in their entirety, and I will explain some about the cards and whatnot. So let's go ahead and flip you guys down, and I will show you the cards. Okay, so like I was saying, here's the book. I'm just going to show you guys real quick. There's, what is it, the Hangman? Yeah, it looks like it. It does give the picture. It gives a little bit. This is the Hangman, the introduction to the Hangman card, and then it gives a picture of the card, and then it gives this one actually has a reading tip, so that's pretty cool. So sometimes they have the card photo before the title of the card, and sometimes they have it after, so a little bit on that one. So just figured I'd show the book up close. So a little bit about these cards. This is like regular Llewellyn cardstock. If you guys have a newer version of the Rider-Waite-Smith Terror deck by US Games, it's about the same finish as that. I do have my old deck of, or my older deck of Rider-Waite-Smith over there that has the thick plastic coating that I talked about in a previous video. It is not that thick. If you have the Witch's Tarot, it's about the same feel, same cardstock. It's Llewellyn Publications. They seem to do the same type of cardstock for all of their types of cards. So if you look on the back, like I said, in the book, it doesn't give reverse meanings, so not really reversed friendly. Even on the back, you could tell if you look at the back whether or not a card is going to come up reversed. If we flip these over, this can go borderless. If you would like to cut the deck, you could do it. However, that's fine. Yeah, okay. Yes, the wording on the bottom here would get cut off if you go borderless that way. But then again, if you go borderless and this isn't even, I guess it really wouldn't matter because you have a full picture right here anyway. So you could already tell if it was reversed. So if you're not one that looks at the backs like me, it really wouldn't be a huge deal, and you could go borderless for the sides and the top alone. I have done one reading for a friend with these, and it was fairly accurate. I would say that was fairly accurate. That's for that individual to determine, not for me. But the readability of this deck is fairly close to the Rider-Waite-Smith, and yeah, I think it's fairly nice to read with. The images obviously do deal with steampunk, so you're going to see a lot of Victorian style clothing. You're going to see a lot of gears, a lot of metalwork, stuff like that. You're going to see a lot of little things here and there that make their appearance time and time again. Any like clockworks or anything, stuff like that. You guys probably understand what steampunk is, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Now we're going to go through one by one, and you guys can see the deck in its entirety alongside the Rider-Waite-Smith. So we have the full Lovely full. The Magician. One thing that I don't like about this Magician is that he's not holding his wand. The wand is actually down here instead of in his hand. That's an inconsistency that I would have liked to have seen rectified. But if you go with more ceremonial magic, he is using the wand. This could be during the ritual. We don't really know. It actually might be in the book, but that's unclear. But that is something that I would have liked to have seen in this, is something akin to the more traditional holding the wand. So I do like this High Priestess. I like how she's dealing tarot. I like that she has the crystal ball for the intuition. She doesn't have her book, which is something that is not really that big of a deal, because she does have the crystal ball. She does have a source of knowledge, a source of intuition, of greater understanding. So for me, that is pretty good. I do like this. I think it's a very beautiful card. I love the artwork on this deck. So, and I'm not a huge steampunk fan, but I can really kind of dig this deck just for its artwork. The Empress. This Empress, I kind of have a little love-hate relationship with her, because this Empress, she seems a little too seductive. To me, the Empress is more about mother energy and whatnot, and this is more of the lover energy, the seductress, like the Mrs. Robinson, are you trying to seduce me type energy. And that is totally not what I get from the Empress card. But hey, she's doing her, and she's, taking force. So kudos on her. The Emperor, I do like this Emperor card. I think it's very fitting. He is on his throne like usual. You see the upright and the downward facing triangles, and then you have the reversed of each on the back of the chair up here. So those might be covered in the book. I don't know, because I didn't read that in depth into the book yet, seeing that I just got this deck probably a month and a half, 2 months ago. And with the move and everything, I haven't been able to really delve into the book. But this might actually be addressed in the book, all the little symbols that are contributing to this scene. So I do like this Emperor. The Hierophant, I do wish that this Hierophant had the traditional symbol with his hands. I do wish that was a thing, but apparently it is not in this deck. So I wish that was going on. It still has the keys, which is a key part. It has the books, which glean to that this person has knowledge. This person has been around the block a few times and is imparting this knowledge onto his fellow man or fellow woman. So I do appreciate that. The Lover's card. In this one, you have the male and the female reversed in this deck. So if that's something that you that is kind of a drawback for you, I do like the male to be more on the right side of the card than on the left side of the card, or on my right, the card's left. To me, whenever I'm viewing the card, it kind of reminds me of the masculine force being on the right and the feminine force being on the left. But at least for me, that's how it works. Behind them, you have the tree. This one doesn't have apples, but this one does have flames because they're gaslit lanterns. I do appreciate that. I like their spin on it. I like the angel. The angel is kind of busty for an angel, but you know what? She's got it working for her, so I cannot fault the angel for being a little busty in this one. The Chariot, I have one drawback on this. Is two drawbacks. I wish they would have had a view of the chariot a little further back so you could actually see the horses, the sphinxes. I wish you could see them more in their entirety, as well as I wish they would have made them more light and dark, such as the quote-unquote traditional style. I wish they were more predominantly white or black, or had some denotion of being separate and not being the same animal. So, if you guys get my drift on that. I really wish they would have done that, but other than that, some minor symbolism. Some of the usual symbolism you don't see in this card. At least it's not readily apparent if it is in there, and I don't see like all the symbols here. I don't see in this card. So I do, however, really like how they took the umbrella, the parasol, and they have the same, looks like the same stars or the same star theme, and they carried it over to the umbrella. I do appreciate that. There was some nod to the old ways with that. So I do appreciate that. Strength card. Some differences from the normal strength card or the usual style of strength card that we have here. We have this female. She is taking something, it looks like it's actually a gear that she's taking out of... Oh, come on, focus. Let me see if I can do that. She's actually taking a gear out of the paw of the lion. So she's showing the strength of having the capability of caring for this animal, as well as the animal having the trust and the strength to trust this individual to help it. So I think this is a great take on the strength card. The strength to get over your wounds. A lot of things that strength can have to do with this card. It can also be a card of healing in this aspect, I guess, which again is a new way for me to be looking at the strength card. I love how the lion is just like laying there asking for this help. It speaks on so many levels, and let me just say that the females in this deck, very beautifully done, and the males in this deck, they're all right, but the females, they are very well done, very beautiful females, and so that's the strength card. Not really anything bad to say about it. So yeah, moving on. The Hermit. This is my card, guys. If you've been watching, you know that this is the card, or one of the cards, that really dictates whether or not I will end up falling in love with a deck. This is just one of those cards. The Hermit is very nice in this deck. One drawback that I have is that it does not have the Star of David illuminating in his lantern. With that being said, I love that they have the lantern as an hourglass shooting out the sparks. I love that his cane is made out of gears and whatnot. I love that he's standing on a pile of gears and all kinds of other metal stuff. I really love this Hermit card. I really do. So, with that being my only drawback with the lantern, I think everything else is fitting of a traditional type of Hermit. And I really like that even in the background you can see the town. So, it's not really that he's on this barren mountain. It's that he has gone away from the city for a moment, but it looks like he is going to eventually return, or that he is on his return, or he might just be going away just for a little bit, that he intends to come back to society and share the knowledge that he has gone off to seek within himself. So that to me is kind of the reasoning for the hermit to be on that mountain, is for the knowledge that he seeks within himself. So for me, this is a very fitting scene, a very nice hermit. Nothing really bad to say about it besides the lantern. The Wheel of Fortune. A lot of things that are not in here that are usually in here, like the images from the respective cardinal directions and their zodiac signs and whatnot. Now you do have the zodiac, the directional elements here. You have the pentacle there. You have the astrological symbols and whatnot, and the planetary symbols here. So, I mean, it does incorporate that from the old to the new. However, it's not in their usual corners and whatnot. It gives a very faint, I don't know if it's picking it up, a very faint type of like mathematical equations and whatnot in the background. You might be able to see that, I don't know. But it does give that, which is kind of a nod to, you know, all the mathematical stuff that goes along with steampunk and all that stuff. So, yeah, really kind of cool, but not the traditional style of the Wheel of Fortune. But then again, the Wheel of Fortune, at least for me, is not like one of those go-to cards that really holds a lot of weight that some of the other cards do. For others, it's a huge deal. To me, not as big of a deal. I do appreciate this Wheel of Fortune, but I wish they would have stuck a little bit more to the traditional in a way. I know everybody has to do their own thing, but, you know, I wish they would have stuck to it a little bit more. Okay, we have the Justice card. I have a little bit of a reservation on this Justice card. While I think it's a beautiful Justice card, I don't like that instead of a sword, they have tarot cards coming from the hand of Lady Justice. I also don't like that Lady Justice is not holding her scale. I can understand why the scale is on the floor, but I do not understand, without reading the book, why she has tarot cards coming out of her hand. Justice is kind of the rule of law, at least the way that I see the Justice card. It is the rule of law, and if you are doing a law case or you're dictating somebody's guilt or innocence with tarot cards, that's not the rule of law that I know and love. So I don't understand why they have the tarot cards in there. I also have a drawback with the feather and the gems. I think this is kind of a nod to the weight of a person's heart being compared to the weight of a feather. I'm not sure without reading the book, so don't quote me on that. But I do have something against the gems being there, because it's kind of like, oh, you know, innocence can be bought, or, you know, justice can be bought and paid for. It's kind of shady having the gems or the jewels in that, along with the tarot cards. Not really feeling this Justice card. I think it's a beautiful card. I just don't get some of the symbolism. And like I said, it might be in the book, and I just haven't read that part yet. And you know what? I could be totally off base, misinterpreting things. But to me, at first glance, not really feeling this Justice card. Sorry. Even though I do love the artwork. The Hanged Man. One drawback that I have of the Hangman, I think this is a good Hangman overall. The one thing that I was taken aback by is that not only is he bound by his leg, but he's bound by both arms. In this one, in the quote-unquote traditional style. You see that he is bound by one leg, but we never see his arms in this one, that whether or not he is actually bound by his arms. It is thought that he's hanging there of his own free will. I've heard that before. I've heard many different theories. I like the theory that he is hanging there of his own free will, that he can come down whenever he needs to, that he's there for a difference of perspective, and that's why he's hanging there. However, I have not, like I said, read the book yet, so I don't know why the vines are holding his hands down. I'm not sure of that. It really kind of irritates me that he is totally confined in this way, but other than that, I have no drawbacks to this card. It is a very beautiful card. Everything else looks to be pretty consistent. The leg is in the same position. His head, I will say this, the faces, heads are going in different directions, so if you read with facing cards, this might be a difference in perspective for you. So I know some people read like that. I usually don't. Sometimes I do. It just depends on how the intuition flows. But everything else here seems to be pretty on point. The face just being a little turned, and the arms actually being not only visible, but bound down by vines. The Death card, I do like this Death card. I think it's very regal, very appropriate. They made Death a woman in this one. The Angel of Death is a woman in this one. So she's actually in a cemetery. She has the traditional scythe. There is nobody begging at the feet of Death. There is no bigger scene. Behind her, we do see a cemetery, which is very fitting. I do kind of wish that the horse was the pale horse that Death rides, and possibly that she would be in more of a black dress or something of that nature. But I do like the white dress with the black wings. I think that is still very fitting. So I wouldn't necessarily get rid of that, but I would change the horse to a white horse. Okay, Temperance. There is one drawback to this Temperance card. Compared to the quote-unquote traditional, we have the water flowing from one cup to another, and it doesn't appear like any drops are being spilled. In this one, you actually have drops being spilled over the edge, but she is levitating them, and I think that's kind of appropriate. I do like this Temperance card. I think it's very very steampunkish. I think it's very appropriate for the entirety of the deck. I just wish that they would have maybe have used actual cups instead of using these gears, and would not have let the water flow down or drip down. So that's my only drawback on this one. Other than that, a very nice card. I think it's very well done, very appropriate. The Devil card, I actually kind of love this Devil card. You see the people down here, they are like marionettes, and they have the capability to undo the devil or to help the devil, and they're kind of in the area of their own making. You do have the male and female, I do believe. Yes, one is male, one is female in this. The female's over here, the male is over there. So not your common devil, but still a very appropriate devil for the meaning. So, no comments on that. The Tower. I kind of like the Tower card. There are a couple drawbacks. You see nobody flying out. The Tower card, you usually see somebody flying out. It's a common symbolism in it. However, I can understand why they didn't do that on this one. I kind of wish that some aspect of the tower was like blown off or you could see debris. However, I see why they did this, because it's more of like a factory explosion type of situation, something like that. So I can understand that. A very appropriate card overall. I do like it. The star card. This is less of a star card and more of a moon card, I guess. Usually you see the star card bright and airy and whatnot, but this one kind of took a dark turn. Not really digging this particular star card, because the star card is more of a happy, joyful type of card. Still very beautiful though. The moon card we have here looks fairly appropriate. You have the pillars in the background. You have the moon, the full moon. You have the crab. You have the wolf and the fox. This one actually looks like a cat. You have the stream, the water and whatnot. So overall, common symbolism. Very pretty, very appropriate moon card. So the sun card, I like this sun card. I like that that you have a couple individuals on this, but I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to always follow the traditional quote unquote traditional style. I think this is a very appropriate sun card. I would like to see what the deck contributors actually meant with having more than one person in this card and no horse. So that's something I look forward to reading on in the book. Hopefully that it's actually touched on and not just something that's glossed over. Overall, a nice card. I'm actually kind of digging the sun. Judgment, I kind of like the caskets. I like the design of the caskets. The angel, instead of playing a horn, it is playing the phonograph with the horn on that. So yes, very appropriate, very steampunkish, kind of digging it. Just kind of found or figured that out like just now, so I'm kind of like impressed with myself and kind of shocked that it took me that long. As my friend Kelly would say, oh honey. Anyway, one drawback, it does not have multiple people, or does not have more than two people. Here you see a lot of individuals being called up in this judgment, and in this one you only see two people. I still get where they're going with it. I still understand that it's a judgment card, and I'm kind of digging the symbolism between the horn and the phonograph. I really kind of dig that, so kudos on that. I don't really have any bad comments about this besides the amount of people. So yeah, a good judgment card. And the world card, you have the symbolism between the four elements. You don't have the animals or the human, but you do have the symbolism there. You have the gears, indicative of the steampunk style. The individual that is prominent on the card is in roughly the same pose as the traditional style, and pretty appropriate of a card overall. I don't really have that many drawbacks on it, so I'm going to go ahead and move to the minors. Now, I'm not going to go through and explain each individual card and the differences, only because I'm looking at my time on my camera right now, and I'm about at a half an hour, so I don't want to bog this down with too much information. So I'm going to just let you guys go ahead and view the cards, and if I see something that really pops out, then I will go ahead and say something. I really like the gears and everything that is entailed in this. This one, I do want to point out that there's a couple little things actually that are happening here. This guy is going for a sword here, There's an hourglass here, which seems to be connected to a line and a pulley that is holding, I think it's all three swords up above him. So there's a couple things happening in this scene, and I'm really interested to see if the book actually correlates with what is actually going on in this scene. I noticed that whenever I was flipping through it, organizing the cards for the making of this video, and I really kind of want to go and see what the book has to say about it. Inappropriate 5 of swords overall. I like how instead of the swords piercing into the boat, they have the hot air balloon, or the Zeppelin, or whatever it is, the balloon, and they have the 6 swords on the balloon itself as part of the balloon design. I like that. I think that's a very appropriate way to take it. I would like to know what the symbol here is. I like that they took this approach. I think this might be a nod to the Illuminati. I don't know. Don't quote me on it. But that's what it appears to be for me. And I don't know. I'm really curious to see why they have the triangle and eye in this one. I do like this 8 of swords. I think it's kind of indicative of the, like a carnival game, or not carnival, like a circus, well, maybe a carnival, I guess. But you have the Chariot of swords. It's kind of cool. This one, very appropriate. I don't have any bad comments about it. I think they took a good route going with the flying daggers. I like that. I have no real big comments on this, except that his briefcase looks a little too modern for the time frame. But you know what? I'm not going to get hung up on that, because I didn't look that closely at it, and I don't know my briefcases that well to say whether or not it's a newer or older briefcase. So here's one thing that I will say. Here's your pages, and this is it. There is only one male knight in this deck, and I'm kind of digging the feminine power that is expressed in this deck. I really do appreciate that. I really like that they took that route. However, if you want duality, especially for tarot, I like the duality within a tarot deck. If you want duality in a tarot deck, I would do half and half. Like half the pages are male and half are female. Half the knights are male and half of the knights are female. That's just my take on that. So for the duality, I would really appreciate that if you are into duality within your tarot decks. In this one, you actually have the person in the Two of Wands viewing you instead of looking out into the sea. Well, the sea could be down here, we don't know. But kind of different, not seeing them from the back, or not seeing their back. I kind of like this one. Waiting for a ship to come in, waiting on the docks. This one it's more of a time frame reference on the Four of Wands for me, that instead of being in the party, they are still setting up the party. So one little drawback on that. Not a big deal. I'm really actually quite pleased with this deck. So yeah, I really have no huge drawbacks except for the whole knight page situation type of thing. I really wish they would have gone with the total duality of male and female energies within this deck instead of going mostly female, which, you know what, I can take it or leave it. It's not a huge deal. Now this 9 of Wands, I don't actually see 9 wands in this photo or in this scene here, and it could be that they are included somewhere else within the photo that I'm not obviously seeing it, but I will also read into the description more to see what the meaning is behind that. So yeah, everything else in the symbolism seems to be traditional, except for the 9 wands behind them. I will say that this lady has her act together with regards to carrying the 10 wands. I kind of like it whenever a 10 of wands is actually physically carrying them with her hands, because it kind of shows more of a burden. She doesn't really seem to be burdened that much here. She's kind of a badass, and she's just like, you know, I'll sling these over my shoulders and go to walking out in high heels in a dress and meet up with Jack the Ripper and kick his ass. That's kind of the vibe that I'm seeing from her, and yeah, that's not the 10 of wands to me. That's the 10 of wands is more about the burden than it is about looking like a badass. So kudos on her, because I think just by looking at her, she could probably take Jack the Ripper, but you know what? I would really appreciate a 10 of wands where you see more of the burden that is more traditional in other decks, as well as in the quote-unquote more traditional deck. I do like that they have the 2 of Cups with the 2 individuals here. I will say, however, I wish that instead of just 1 beaker with 2 energies coming out of it, I would like to have seen 2 beakers with all the energy coming out of it. It would have just kept in line with the cups aspect, because right now it seems like it's all coming out of 1, and actually no, I take that back. They are both holding beakers. So that is my apology on that. I just noticed that, like, just right meow. So if you can see that. So I have absolutely nothing bad to say about this. Moving on, as I embarrass myself. I like this 3 of Cups. I really do. I like to see the 3 of Cups less of the, you know, hails and farewells type of cup raising, giving a toast or whatnot, and more of the laid back, you know, hey, we're having drinks with the girls type thing. I really like that. This one, you don't have the hand present or nobody presenting him with a cup, but you do see the cup up here that he is blatantly ignoring. So yeah, this is a very appropriate deck overall. I have nothing really overly bad to say about it. There are a few individual ones here and there that I really don't jive with, but overall I am liking this deck. Like I said, I have given one reading, my only in-person reading so far, to a friend, and I shuffled the heck out of this deck after I showed it to her, and she saw me shuffle the heck out of it, and everything came up, you know, fairly appropriately for her. And like I said, that's my take on it. and I'll continue the story in a second. I do want to say I'm not sure why there's a plane in the background. I don't know if you can really see that, but there's a plane in the background of that. It's like a little spaceship. A little too modern for the steampunk as I see it. But anyway, back to my story as I show these wonderful cards. So, yes, she saw me shuffle these right after she looked at them and everything, and they gave a great reading. At least, like I said, I would call it a great reading. It gave a great reading right out the gate. There was only one card that I had to actually go, and I was sitting there, I'm like, I can't remember this card, and I'm not gleaning the symbolism out of this. I have to go to the deck, and once I looked it up, I'm like, oh, yeah, and I told her, I said, in the quote-unquote traditional tarot, this is this card, and this is what it depicts. In this one, it depicts it this way, and that's not, how I commonly view it or commonly see it. I love this this Four of Pentacles. I like the coin box. I really do. I think it's very appropriate. The Miser card. But anyway, that is the only time I had to use the book with this deck. So I didn't really have a need to go back. Okay, guys. I'm sorry, my camera cut off. The battery died. So I can't remember exactly where I left off. I'm pretty sure if I looked at my editor correctly, that I left off on the Five of Pentacles. And I was saying that I was consulting the book on only one card whenever I was doing this in-person reading. And the fact that it was only one card that I had to consult the book on was actually pretty good. So, I mean, the symbolism of these cards closely resembles the Rider-Waite-Smith overall. I mean, there are obviously differences, as you can see. They are beautifully done. I don't have any complaints on the artisticness, or the artistic style of the artist. I have no comments that are negative. Any comments that I would have would only be positive. It is beautiful artwork. So I do give them kudos on that. And I mean, there's just some minor differences on the symbolism between, and just so you guys know, this is the only male knight, the Knight of Pentacles. It's the only male knight in the deck that I was talking about before. Yeah, but anyway, the only comment that I actually have that would be negative is the symbolism does not necessarily closely match that of the quote-unquote traditional Rider-Waite-Smith style. So I also forgot to mention that the cards are fairly close to the same dimensions as the Rider-Waite-Smith. You just have a little bit extra on the top here. And yeah, so that's pretty darn good. The finish is kind of a matte finish. Like I said, if you guys have the Witch's Tarot, this is very close to the Witch's Tarot, and actually it's probably the same type of finish, the same type of cardstock. It is easy to shuffle because of the flexibility of the cardstock, but I don't know if it would be one that would be used years and years down the line. I do have one worry about this, about the artwork on this because of the finish, is that like the Witch's Tarot, I do notice, or I did notice with the Witch's Tarot that there was some rubbing, and I think I'm seeing some rubbing on this King of Pentacles. Oh dear, there's the glare. Okay, some rubbing from whenever you shuffle and whatnot, that it takes away some of the overall artwork on the card. So that's one thing to be aware of if you get this deck. Overall, a good deck. I can't really complain too much about it. Shuffles fairly easily. Let's see here. Yep, no complaints about the shuffling. Smooth with the card to card. Feels very smooth. So yeah, not a large deck, and if you end up taking off the borders, it would probably see, I don't know if I would want to take off the borders, and if I did, I would want to leave the titles down here. If I worked with it enough, I'd even take the titles off, because like I said, the backs are not reversible type of backings. So that's one of my only complaints. I do like a harder to notice reversal backing, but shuffles fairly well. No problems on the shuffling. So overall, a good deck with a good book. And that is the Steampunk Tarot by Barbara Moore and illustrated by Ali Fell. So if this is something that you would like, I'd suggest going and getting it if steampunk is your type of thing. So until next time, guys, may you have love, hugs, and ladybugs. Bye-bye.